Megxit.
What do you
They're calling it Megxit because, we're out of ideas.
Everyone's saying it's her fault. Like, oh, I don't trust Meghan. I don't like the look of her. It's all Meghan. She's manipulative. It's amazing how much men can get away with. Like, Harry, dressed like a Nazi, fought in a war. He's naked in Vegas, taking drugs. All he had to do to wipe the slate clean was marry a black woman and fly economy. And now everyone's like, he's the Duke of Woke.
Well, what's this girl, Meghan Markle? Just complaining. I was like, didn't she hit the light-skin lottery? Acting all dumb like she don't know nothing. I had no idea how racist they were. It's the royal family. They're the original racists. Some of that shit she went through was not racism. They wanted to know how brown the baby was gonna be. I'm like, that's not racist.
I understand how you retire from not having a job. You know what I mean? They've just got back from a 6-week vacation in Canada, and they've landed, and the first thing they've said is, whoa, this is too much work.
It's very confusing to me because Meghan Markle's done backwards exactly my life. So, I was a waitress who hooked up with a creep from a trash family, and I left Canada because I wasn't getting enough attention.
Because even black people want to know how brown the baby gonna be. Shit, we check behind them ears. That's a scientific test. Black girl trying to be accepted by her white in-laws, it's so hard. It's very hard. But it ain't as hard as a white girl trying to be accepted by her black in-laws.
Yeah, we learned quite a bit about the rules, the protocols, the firm. We even learned that Tyler Perry took them in when they came to America and provided them with security. Wow. Basically, if you missed the interview, the royal family was like, goodbye, and Tyler Perry was like, hello. Yep, we learned quite a bit from the interview, like what we've been missing all year wasn't a normal life, it was Oprah. Yeah, it was a big event, mainly because they revealed the baby's gender in California without burning down an entire forest.
You've been hanging out with Meghan and Harry since they've been in California?
No, I don't know them.
What do you think of them?
I admire Harry for going to Afghanistan. Anybody who's had military service, I can only criticize so much because I haven't. And there's nothing that compares to military service. But they're ridiculous after that. They want it both ways. You know, you can't be, these people were so mean to us and poor us, and we don't want all this attention, and then let me write a book about how much we don't want attention.
Everyone saw it. Jo Koy stepping onto the Golden Globe stage and delivering the line that instantly went global. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will still get paid millions for doing absolutely nothing. It wasn't just a joke, it was a statement, and it signaled something bigger, that the entertainment world is no longer protecting Meghan Markle. Instead, she has become a centerpiece of comedy, with Chris Rock, Trevor Noah, and others all joining the chorus. And it's not hard to see why this hit so hard. Jo Koy's joke landed because it touched on the Netflix deal that has been a sore spot for years, a contract critics say symbolizes Meghan and Harry's entire brand. But Jo Koy wasn't the first to say it out loud. Months earlier, Chris Rock had already gone viral for his unforgiving Netflix stand-up special, mocking Meghan's Oprah interview by calling out the absurdity of her not knowing what the royal family represented. That punchline became a cultural reference point in itself. Meanwhile, Trevor Noah's late-night commentary took a different path. Clever, understated irony. His comparisons painted Meghan as someone chasing both privacy and publicity at the same time, a contradiction that fans and critics alike couldn't ignore. So what we're looking at now is not a one-off moment, but a trend. Meghan Markle has crossed into a new stage of public perception, where comedians across genres, from Hollywood to late night to stand-up, feel free to turn her into material. The only question left, among these high-profile roasts, who actually did it best? When Jo Koy walked out as host of the Golden Globes, no one expected his opening set to change the conversation around Meghan Markle. But that's exactly what happened. In just a few lines, he summed up years of criticism with a punchline that Hollywood itself couldn't stop sharing. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will still get paid millions of dollars for doing absolutely nothing. The audience reaction wasn't just laughter, it was recognition. Jo Koy had taken what insiders had whispered about the couple's Netflix deal and put it right on the main stage.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will still get paid millions of dollars for doing absolutely nothing.
By comparing the royal drama to The Crown and painting Harry as financially desperate, he tapped into a wider frustration that the Sussexes were profiting without producing. It was satire layered with truth, and that's what made it sting. The timing made it even more powerful. With the Golden Globes trying to restore their reputation after years of controversy, the last thing anyone expected was Meghan Markle becoming the centerpiece of the night's viral moment. Yet within hours, clips of Jo Koy's lines were everywhere online, turning his roast into one of the most talked about parts of the show. And it didn't end there. His words had a ripple effect, giving comedians, late-night hosts, and even fellow celebrities the green light to chime in. What started as a joke at an award ceremony quickly became a cultural flashpoint, proof that Meghan and Harry had shifted from untouchable figures to open comedy targets. But Jo Koy's roast was only the beginning. The real question wasn't just about the Golden Globes. It was how other comedians, each with their own style, would take things even further. While Jo Koy went straight for the jugular at the Golden Globes, Trevor Noah took a different path. His approach was sly, witty, and wrapped in charm, the kind of humor that doesn't explode all at once, but lingers in the audience's mind long after the joke is told. Noah's best-known dig came when he compared Meghan Markle's royal expectations to something out of Black Panther. The line was simple. She thought she was marrying into Wakanda, not the monarchy. That joke worked on multiple levels. It captured her supposed naivety, highlighted the gap between her expectations and reality, and turned the fairy tale narrative into a punchline. But Noah didn't stop there. On The Daily Show and other late-night platforms, he consistently pointed to the contradictions in Harry and Meghan's public life. His running theme was irony, a couple declaring they wanted privacy while simultaneously signing multi-million-dollar Netflix deals, producing documentaries, and sitting for high-profile magazine covers. Instead of labeling it outright hypocrisy, he let the audience connect the dots, which often made the laughs even bigger. What made Trevor Noah's take so unique was his delivery.
Came up with the picture of an annoying, insufferable white woman, it would be Meghan Markle, even though she's not white.
He didn't sound angry or bitter. Instead, he used satire to frame Meghan as someone chasing two opposite things at once, public adoration and private peace, and making both look impossible. In a way, Noah's style exposed the exact same issues that Chris Rock and Jo Koy would later hammer, but he did it with a smoother, almost playful touch, and that's why his roast stood out. It wasn't savage for the sake of it. It was observational comedy, the kind that points out contradictions so obvious that once you hear them, you can't unsee them. But if Trevor Noah was the master of irony, Chris Rock was about to deliver the kind of brutal honesty that no one could mistake for anything other than pure fire. If Trevor Noah was sly, Chris Rock was merciless. His Netflix special became a cultural lightning bolt, not just because it was funny, but because it stripped away every layer of Meghan Markle's carefully managed story. And the moment that went viral came when Rock zeroed in on her Oprah interview, the claim that she didn't know the royal family was racist. Rock didn't hesitate. What the hell is she talking about? She didn't know the royal family was racist? They're the OG racists. They invented colonialism. The audience roared because it wasn't just a joke. It was blunt truth phrased in the only way Chris Rock could deliver it. Then came the analogy that sealed the deal. Rock compared Meghan's claim to marrying into the Budweiser family and acting shocked that they drank beer. It was simple, brutal, and unforgettable. That punchline spread across social media faster than any palace press release could keep up with, reinforcing the idea that her version of events just didn't hold up under scrutiny. But Rock didn't stop at just exposing contradictions. His style was surgical. Every punchline doubled as commentary.
I watched the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary. Now, I'll be honest with you, before I watched it, I was not a fan of theirs. But now I've actually heard their side of the story, I f***ing hate them.
In California, we're just a regular couple living close to Oprah and far from the paparazzi. But not too far.
What do you mean by that?
By mocking Meghan's surprise, he was really pointing to a bigger problem, the gap between how the couple wants to be seen and how the world actually sees them. Where Jo Koy gave Hollywood permission to laugh, Chris Rock gave audiences permission to call out what felt like obvious nonsense. And it mattered because Rock's words weren't just late-night humor. They carried the weight of a comedy legend who's known for dissecting race, culture, and hypocrisy with precision. This wasn't a passing jab, it was a cultural verdict. Still, Even Chris Rock's firepower was part of a bigger wave. Once his Netflix set hit, it was clear Meghan wasn't just being mocked. She was becoming the entertainment world's most reliable punchline, and the ripple effect would only grow stronger from here. Once Chris Rock's special and Jo Koy's Golden Globes moment hit the culture at full speed, the effect was immediate. Meghan Markle stopped being a royal figure carefully shielded by PR and instead became a running gag that everyone in entertainment felt safe using. It started small. Actress Alexandra Daddario casually admitted Meghan had disrupted her workout routine by showing up at her yoga studio in New York, a place she considered her private escape. On its own, that might have sounded petty, but in the broader context, it revealed something more telling. Meghan's presence itself had become a kind of inconvenience, even for fellow celebrities. Late-night hosts wasted no time following Jo Koy's lead. Jimmy Fallon mocked Meghan's With Love, Meghan Netflix project, zeroing in on the moment she repackaged snacks instead of actually cooking. Fallon's punchline was simple but effective. It turned her lifestyle brand into a symbol of style over substance. Stephen Colbert joined in by ridiculing the couple's private nicknames, M and H. It wasn't savage, but the mockery struck a chord because it highlighted how even their most intimate quirks were now public punchlines. And on Saturday Night Live, writers pushed even further. Their skits painted Meghan as Harry's career mistake, comparing her to Elon Musk's infamous Twitter takeover, something that baffled audiences and tanked reputations. These weren't isolated jokes. They were signs that the industry had collectively decided Meghan and Harry were safe targets. When SNL, Fallon, and Colbert all pile on in the same news cycle,
you have generously offered to keep the wax figures of Harry and Meghan safe.
Yeah, that's correct. And if I may, I would just like to say that I'm definitely not using the wax figures for sex stuff.
It signals something bigger than comedy. It signals a shift in narrative. And the shift didn't stop in America. Across the Atlantic, British satire and animation were about to prove that the ridicule could get even sharper and far more brutal. If American late-night shows were playful, British satire had no intention of holding back. On Spitting Image, the legendary puppet show, Meghan and Harry were reduced to caricatures that mocked every part of their public persona. Harry was portrayed as lazy, talentless, and still obsessed with the royal status he supposedly left behind, while Meghan was cast as the one quietly pulling the strings. Their Netflix deal wasn't celebrated as a bold move. It was depicted as nothing more than a cash grab. One running gag had Puppet Harry bragging about podcasting despite having no discernible talent, while another showed him constantly Googling his place in the line of succession. These weren't random jabs. They cut straight to the perception that Harry and Meghan were clinging to the fame they claimed they had walked away from. But the satire didn't stop in the UK. Across the pond, South Park took the mockery global with its episode titled The Worldwide Privacy Tour. The animated duo of the prince and his wife became instant memes as they stormed through towns chanting, "We want privacy," while chasing attention at every turn. The episode savaged Harry's memoir, framed Meghan as addicted to publicity, and mocked their hypocrisy with the kind of ruthless bluntness that only South Park could get away with. The most iconic moment came when the cartoon couple finally found a quiet, empty town, and immediately second-guessed it. The gag captured the public's exact frustration, that Harry and Meghan never truly wanted privacy at all, only a different stage. By the time the credits rolled, the message was undeniable. When both Spitting Image and South Park have turned you into recurring punchlines, you're no longer just celebrities. You're satire's favorite material. But this wasn't the final word. Because while puppets and cartoons could exaggerate the absurdities, stand-up comedians were about to bring it all crashing back to reality with the sharpest and most personal roasts yet. If South Park and Spitting Image exaggerated the absurdities, stand-up comics had no need to stretch the truth.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the f***?
Oh, Pads, you cracked me up. And not that sort of crack, obviously.
They went straight for the core, and no one cut deeper than Nikki Glaser. Her line was short, sharp, and devastating. If she didn't marry him, she'd be on The Bachelor fighting for Prince. She'd be Megan M. from Sherman Oaks, barista. The crowd erupted because it distilled a thought that had been bubbling for years. Without the royal marriage, Meghan would be seen as ordinary. No hit TV career, no global spotlight, no brand deals. Just another aspiring actress in Los Angeles. British comedian Simon Brodkin added his own fire after slogging through the Sussexes' 6-part Netflix documentary. Instead of feeling sympathy, he admitted he disliked them even more by the end. What stuck out to him weren't the serious claims, but the cringe-worthy details. Their nicknames, H and M. Harry's description of a date as pulling the pin on a fun grenade, and their complaints about paying for personal security. Brodkin's verdict: these details made the couple look out of touch and even more unlikable. This is where the tide really shifted. What began as jokes about Netflix contracts and awkward interviews turned into comedians questioning Meghan's very origin story, her talent, her status, and her authenticity. The roasting wasn't just mocking contradictions anymore, it was cutting into the foundation of her public image. And when comedians start landing blows like that, the conversation doesn't stay confined to the stage. It spills into politics, commentary, and broader culture, which is exactly where Bill Maher picked it up, delivering a critique that went beyond comedy and straight into philosophy. By the time Bill Maher weighed in, the conversation had already shifted from light comedy to something closer to a cultural debate. Maher's verdict was clear. Meghan and Harry weren't just punchlines, they were the embodiment of a larger problem: privilege disguised as hardship. On his show, he called out what he saw as glaring hypocrisy. They want it both ways. He said, "Poor us, we don't want attention. Now let me write a book about how much we don't want attention."
That's a great series about a rich, white, dysfunctional family, all scheming. Oh no, that's The Crown. That's The Crown. I'm sorry.
His point cut deeper than any stand-up set because it framed their story as fundamentally broken, a contradiction that couldn't survive scrutiny. Maher contrasted their approach with Queen Elizabeth's lifelong philosophy: never complain, never explain. Where the Queen's silence created dignity, Meghan and Harry's constant commentary made them look fragile. His criticism wasn't about individual scandals or sound bites, it was about tone, consistency, and the exhausting demand for sympathy from a couple living a life most people could only dream of. And then came the most biting part. Maher argued that what annoyed people most wasn't just their contradictions, but their insistence that everyone else go along with them. In other words, the problem wasn't only their narrative, it was their demand that the world play along with it. This made Maher's critique different from Jo Koy's jokes, Trevor Noah's irony, or Chris Rock's fire. It wasn't comedy anymore. It was philosophy dressed as commentary. And by putting Meghan and Harry in this light, Maher turned their story into something larger, a cautionary tale about the dangers of branding privilege as struggle. But the real question now isn't what Maher said. It's how these voices, from Jo Koy's Golden Globes mic drop to Chris Rock's savage special, to Trevor Noah's clever irony, Nikki Glazer's reality check, and Bill Maher's final slam, will define Meghan's reputation going forward. When you line them all up, each comedian delivered something different. And together, they created a cultural moment Meghan Markle may never fully escape. Jo Koy gave Hollywood the green light with a Golden Globes monologue that instantly went viral. Trevor Noah played it smooth, using irony to expose contradictions without ever raising his voice. Chris Rock, true to form, dropped the most savage truth bombs, turning Meghan's Oprah interview into a punchline for the ages. Nikki Glazer distilled the critique into one unforgettable line about her origin story, while Bill Maher closed the loop by elevating it from comedy into philosophy, calling out the deeper hypocrisy that drives people crazy. What ties all of these together is that none of them sound like random cheap shots. They reflect a shift from Meghan being treated as an untouchable royal to becoming one of comedy's most reliable targets. And once satire, late night, stand-up, and political commentary all pile on at once, the narrative becomes bigger than any single joke. So the question isn't whether Meghan Markle was roasted. That's already beyond doubt. The real question is, who did it best? Was it Jo Koy with his Golden Globes mic drop? Trevor Noah with his clever, ironic punchlines? Chris Rock with his blunt firepower? Or Nikki Glazer with her cutting reality check? At this point, it's not just comedy. It's the court of public opinion, and the verdict is still being written.